Meeting to order. Should all stand. Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get going, I don't think there were enough, but there were little flyers out and about for a meeting with former Congressman Barney Frank on June 2nd. So if anybody's interested, there's information on how to sign up for it. Just thought I'd pass that along. If I'm probably a little late, given how far we've gone, in the future, can we have a piece in the minutes for follow-up items?
Sure. That's not old business?
But just to list what questions we had that needed to be followed up on.
Okay.
And then just keep a running tally of that. That would be great. Mike?
At the last meeting, I tried to give you as much information as I could when we were talking about the sign bylaw. And I have two representatives here tonight, John Carroll from Carroll Advertising, that could come up and answer any technical questions. We're trying to be careful about the fact that the zoning is obviously doesn't mean that it's for this one particular, as the moderator is always very cautious about telling people at town meeting, someone else could put a sign up there. But at least these representatives can give you some of the technical information on the signs themselves and help you out with that. So if John Carroll could.
Good evening, everyone. Bob Messier from Daktronics, who's much more of the technical expert, I would say. Are there any questions to start off with, or should I just kind of give you an overview of what we're going to be trying to?
The site plan, if they want to see what.
I would just
Okay.
do the overview.
We're hopeful to be in front of the town at some point in the future, if everything goes well, with a proposal to install either one or two, depending on how the town wants it to flow, digital or static billboards. We'd be proposing a digital. We've had several meetings prior to this one, gotten feedback from the residents and some of the boards, and have been able to answer, I'd say, all the questions as it relates to light emissions, traffic, data, the sort of the public benefit to the town and whatnot. So the area that we would be looking at is probably about a 2,000-foot-long stretch along 495. I'm pretty familiar with all the properties that are along that frontage. It's a overwhelmingly commercial area, as is the other parcel, I believe, that would be part of this rezoning. The closest resident at the closest point where a potential site could be is probably about 1,800 feet away, so like 5 football fields to the closest residential abutter, which I think there were a couple of folks that had come and asked about the light and whether it would be visible. I don't think we answered it properly the first go-around, but we have specific light analysis studies that we've since done to answer it very specifically and accurately. That's what Bob is from Daktronics. They're who we would probably use as our vendor for the digital structure, industry leader. The digital would have 6 10-second messages with an instantaneous hold time, so there would be no motion, no scrolling, no nothing. It would be just a straight hold time with an instantaneous message change. We have allocated a portion of the display time to public service for the town of Norton, and we're also mandated to do that for the state. Click it or ticket, don't speed in the work zone and such. And also, there's an override that would automatically display an Amber Alert in the event that there was an Amber Alert, and that would hold at that Amber Alert and freeze out everything else until the Amber Alert was over. Let me think. We have a discussion in place to possibly locate an antenna on the top of the structure that would benefit the police and fire department with their communication signal in this part of town. It's been done successfully before in the town of Sharon, and the police and fire department were completely satisfied with it, and it worked out very well. So when it was actually, Mike mentioned that I think one of the police or fire chief had asked him what happened to that billboard proposal, because this is the second time we're coming in front of the town. The first time it was sort of without all the answers and all of the specific studies that the residents were really looking for. So when that came up, the light bulb went on, and I mentioned to Mike that we had done something very similar in the town of Sharon. We installed a repeater on the top of the sign, and it eliminated the poor signal out in that area of town. So I was thrilled that had come up from the town's end to inquire about that. So we're gonna be exploring that too, and it's something that we've agreed to work with the town on and install it. So that's another public safety benefit. So I believe we've addressed and there's another traffic study. We're going to have a preliminary traffic study to identify if there's any existing traffic conditions, basically, and then have a follow-up study so that we have sort of a barometer of whether it's had any negative impact at all. And if it has had a negative impact after a year, at the town's discretion, we would convert the digital sign to a static sign. So, and that wouldn't affect any sort of mitigation that the town would get. That's a fairly strong level of confidence that we have making a sizable investment, being willing to take them down if there's any incidents. So I believe we've addressed the light emissions, the benefit to the town, public safety component, traffic incidents, and then I don't believe that there were any more. I think we've pretty much addressed everything with the town. So I turn it over to Bob from Daktronics that has all the specific light emissions info, unless you want to have some questions?
Maybe an introduction about your company.
Oh, okay.
who you are, and-
I'm John Carroll, Carroll Advertising. Basically started the company. We're basically a mom and pop. You've got a couple of big boys out there. So I worked about 30 years ago for Ackerley Communications, which is now Clear Channel. And then I was at Lamar in Rhode Island for a couple of years. I went out on my own in 1996, built up the company, and wound up selling to one of the big boys about 10 years ago, and have since been building it up again and trying to just pick one location at a time, do the right thing, and we're always giving back. I've got a pretty good track record with 5K road races, this event, that event. So we in fact leave one of the display segments, the sixth of six, to just that, to the state, the town, and then just to basically good deeds and good things we can get behind.
Your local company.
Yeah, local company. Born and raised in Norwood. My office is in Dorchester. Lived in the area my whole life. Live in Rentham right now.
Is that your sign across from Gillette Stadium?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, we built them for the Crafts. So some of them are mine, and some of them are Mr. Crafts, and we service them. So they're not all mine, but a lot of them along Route 1 are.
And the technical aspect, the backroom stuff is from
Daktronics.
Daktronics, who is out of state.
Yes.
Yeah, where-
So Bob Messier.
Daktronics is a manufacturer located out in South Dakota and Minnesota. We have manufacturing facilities, very large name in the industry. We design, build, engineer everything ourselves, right in South Dakota. So we're the manufacturer, the supplier of the technology and the product.
How do you go to market here? You have reps, or do you
I'm-
have a
yep.
distribution center, or?
I'm actually a sales rep for the manufacturer.
Yeah.
With a technical background, I've been with the company 16 years and worked as a technician on billboards and commercial products and Gillette Stadium scoring systems and all that kind of
A
stuff.
lot of good
But I'm a local guy, yep, Massachusetts.
Great, thank you.
So I I have a question. The initial billboard that was put in a similar area, some of the residents nearby, I think it was Blueberry Knoll or Blueberry something Street. I know you said you got feedback from residents. What was the feedback from those residents specifically? Do they have the same concerns they did last time with the billboard? I don't know, is that a mic question?
Yeah, there were two residents from that neighborhood at the selectmen's meeting expressing the same concerns.
Same concerns they had last time? Okay.
That sign would be 1,800 feet away from the closest house?
Yeah, the closest, there's several locations along the frontage that you could possibly locate them, but the one that would be the closest would be the one close, potentially for the closest one is about 1,800, 17. I Google Earthed it just with a straight line, and it was,
I do have a drawing, if you're not familiar with the site, you'd like to see
Sure.
that site.
Pictures?
Kind of shows the
Right.
site itself.
But as a matter of just kind of a blanket statement, we could say, nothing about this zoning bylaw change that we would make would allow any of these billboards, would not allow, would result in any of these billboards being any closer than 1,700 feet to a residence? Can we make that as a blanket statement? Is that a fair assessment?
Say that again, Aaron.
Would we be able to say as a sort of blanket statement that making this zoning bylaw change
That smaller copy.
would not result in a billboard being any closer than 1,700 feet to any residence?
500. The article is 500.
I would say yes, based on where, that sign is. The other ones would be further down along 495 heading towards, as far as they legally can be towards the off-ramp.
So why do we have 500 as the metric in the bylaw? Or in the proposed change?
500
500 feet.
500 feet of the highway?
No, 2,000 highway, 500 another.
Yeah, that's going to,
residential
that'll change to 500.
Highway?
Yeah. That was a planning board recommendation previously. And the other one, the state has a requirement that the signs can't be within 1,000 feet, I believe, is it? Oh,
500 for static, 1,000 for digital.
1,000 for digital, yeah.
If the sort of fact of the matter for us is that it wouldn't be within, 1,700 feet of a residence, would it make it perhaps more palatable to word that wouldn't be within 1,500 feet of a residence within the bylaw?
I
Allay some concerns about people thinking this might be right in my backyard?
I don't know if you've looked,
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
If
And
it's
I
a
think we're
harmless
gonna-
proposal
I
to
think
your
that's-
plans,
Yeah, that's a worst-case scenario, and if you say 1,500, that's more than safe.
does it make sense to you, Mike?
that's fine.
I mean,
Yeah.
if that kind of wording is in there, then people who are reading it will immediately, kind of understand,
Good point.
well, it's in the bylaw, it can't be within 1,500 feet, which is, like you said, a lot of football fields away. That's pretty well off in the distance and unintrusive to residents, and if that doesn't interrupt the plans and obstruct, what it is we're trying to accomplish here, then, I think it's a good way to let people know, like, hey, this is gonna be okay.
Another question you had at the last meeting was on height. And so I asked John, I was driving home that night, and at one point on the highway, I could barely see the Holiday Inn. and they have a sign on top. So I was asking John, what would the comparison be at the height of this sign to the Holiday Inn?
It would definitely be lower, and coincidentally, I was on the phone to you driving down 495, so I was able to be on the phone and get a good sight line. I mean, it's hard to say because they're so far apart, but it would be clearly lower. It would be, the Holiday Inn would be at least 10 feet higher, on top of that. We don't want it too high anyway. You want a good sight line, so. And there's a pretty good canopy. If you look at that visual there, it's really all mature pines, all along the perimeter that would be higher than the top of the sign anyway.
Right, and even the residence that you can see on that map, I mean, it's thick forest between that 1,800 feet.
An evergreen.
Yeah.
It
This
look-
is targeted for the interstate traffic. Obviously, it's targeted for the interstate highway. LEDs are very directional light. They're not intended to light up an area like a parking lot. They're intended to be focused directly on the audience that they're focused for, which would be 495. Once you go outside of those angles, the light drops substantially. And that's what that graph shows. This circle is actually how many degrees from the face. So these are your faces, facing 495 north and south. And then these are your distances and your angles. And it shows you basically what the foot candle rating would be at that distance. At 750 feet, it's 0.02 foot candles at those angles.
And what dimming level is that?
That's basically at full dim.
So
So
there's
it has-
256 dim levels.
Yeah, well, it goes from 100% a bright sunny day, it's 100% bright, 100%.
Yeah.
There's a photo cell that constantly reads the ambient light in
Yep.
3 different directions, and it adjusts so it knows where the sun is.
Yep.
And it will automatically dim down to about 4%. So it goes from 100 to 4% within those dimming levels. It's very important.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it's very important. Now, basically looking straight on with the billboard at those distances, industry standard is no more than 0.3 foot candles above the ambient light outside. So it compares what it is outside, and it will never be over that.
So, it looks like you have one location that you've determined.
Yeah, this is,
Everything's preliminary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
it's in that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's,
yeah, yeah.
Like I said, there is, in that cone, which
Yep.
the light out in these areas out here is nothing really once you get out here. And you can see it's all really thick wooded area.
I mean, it's probably would be, is probably the,
Is the, yeah.
that would be the first one, if everything,
And you want to be that back.
yeah, it's close to
Yeah,
490, but you
right.
have the building, huge canopy, and then,
Yeah.
and I think we based it on a close one. So we had another one that was, so I think this is all commercial, that's
Yeah,
Lowe's,
yeah.
that's Bridge Rigger.
Yeah.
So I think that's the closest residential.
Did you need another one of these?
No, but I have a couple questions. One's kind of technical on, talks about the lumens and the candle lights and all that kind of stuff. So, when I'm in my backyard on a full moon, and it's nice and bright, and I could almost read a book, what's this gonna look like to me compared to the moon? So I have no idea what the candle lights of a moon is, but like, when I'm out there, I can see it.
Yeah, no, I know.
So
you mean.
what, so can you compare that? Is there a comparison? So if I was out and I actually could see the billboard, how far away can I see it like that? I don't know, I'm just trying to get a concept of it, you know?
Yeah, no, it's a good analogy.
Yeah.
I mean, 0.3 foot candles is very, very minimal amount of light. I mean, the moon that would be more light. You're not gonna read
No, I'm not
the
gonna-
newspaper under.
I'm being, you know,
And it's,
exaggerating that, but when you step out and the moon's bright and it's full, you feel like you can see pretty well. So
Right.
like, is that,
it's more of a reflected light from the sun hitting the moon, and it's lighting up everywhere.
Yeah.
This is more of a focused light.
Okay.
So once you get away from that straight on,
straight on? then-
0%, we call it,
Okay.
out to 750%,
Yeah,
that light drops dramatically.
okay.
You wouldn't see it if you were behind it.
I know that, yeah, I figured that
Actually,
much, but like,
there's
but in
no
front,
light.
so
There's no like glow.
glow.
Right.
There's no glow.
Like the moon gives
Yeah,
a
you
glow,
wouldn't,
basically. You don't
I
get
thought
that.
there would be, I actually,
Okay.
for another presentation, took some pictures at night and the day, behind a board, and I couldn't believe it. I thought that there might be a little bit of Glow, there was nothing, it was pitch black.
And the other question I had, so according to our warrant, we have 2,000 feet from 495, 500 feet from a resident, and 1,000 between any billboard. So are those numbers changing?
Yeah.
The 500 feet,
From any residential structure?
it'll be 500 feet from 495,
Okay,
and then the residential, we can change that to 1,500 or
I would make it as big a number as you can without interrupting any
Right.
Oh,
plans
okay.
or possible.
That's something that we'll bring up at the planning board. They would have to make those recommendations.
okay.
Okay, you said, well, the closest residence is 1,800 feet. How many residences can view that sign from there?
That would be it.
That one?
Yeah. And he wouldn't even be able to see it.
Okay, and so the two people from Blueberry Knoll can't even see the sign? Is that true?
I would be
Go ahead.
surprised,
If it's that
John
same-
can speak, but I'd be surprised if they could.
No, and if it was the same gentleman, at the end of the day, it came down to, I think we fairly confidently addressed all of his concerns, and at the end of the day, he said, I just don't like billboards.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Well, nobody
That was
does,
the point.
but what are you going to do? And just, you're probably aware we're going to a regional communication center, so the repeater that goes up would be compatible with the Foxborough Regional?
Yeah, it would be for our radios.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's them actually proposing and wanting that, so they would supply the specs from that.
Yeah, thank you.
Bonnie?
I was wondering if, for you, Mike, if there was, because when Aaron raised the question about 1,500 feet, are there any other locations that could be considered that may be within 1,200 feet? Not just thinking about one single project. And
There,
so that would be, end up being a problem for future projects, not just thinking
yeah,
about.
yeah,
what's
we'd have to look at that and see if heading, trying to think now, on the highway, heading north, or as you look at where that is, if you go closer to Blueberry, if you're able to get closer to Blueberry, there may be a site up there that it would affect. So we'll have, before tomorrow night's planning board meeting, I'll have to
Go for a drive?
Google Earth everything and see.
Yeah, because that's just my concern, is
Yeah.
that there may be a distance that's smaller than 1,500, that's still reasonable for that stretch or any stretch that's a possibility, and we don't want to say 1,500, and then 2 years from now, we have another proposition, but it's 1,325 square feet, or 1,300 feet, and it's not feasible because we set the bylaw to be
Yeah.
1,500. So,
Right, good.
I don't know what this distance is that the planning board can figure out, but that would be reasonable to not affect residents along whatever stretches we're considering, or could be considered.
I thought you said that it was 1,800 feet, the closest residence was 1,800 feet from this whole stretch of.
The closest potential site to the closest resident is approximately 1,800.
1,800 feet.
But 5 years
So it
from now,
only-
we
would
might be
only get
talking about a
farther from
completely
there.
different potential site.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Keep in mind also, Mass Highway has regulations where no one could ever put a billboard within 1,000 feet of that one,
Right.
in either direction.
That's in here too.
Mike, what would the impact be, if any, if it didn't get on this town meeting floor for a vote? If we deferred it to the fall town meeting?
It's just a delay in time.
Okay.
And, you know, if somebody else, if Taunton moves forward and they put signs up, maybe, you know, if Taunton passes something, does Carroll Advertising go there and put one up and then say, well, I don't need one?
Or I can't.
My
That close.
only concern is, we're just talking about it now, and there's been several viable options that have been mentioned, so I'm wondering if we had enough time to really sit back and review this from a technical standpoint.
I had one more question. It says it doesn't say what, but it says it. it shall not exceed more than 90 feet in height. It, and I assume is it the whole billboard structure, or the billboard structure plus any towers? Kind of the article says it, provided that it shall not exceed. So if you're gonna put a tower, does that mean your billboard comes down? Or are you expecting the billboard structure itself to be max at 90 feet, and then you could add a tower to it?
The antenna,
Antenna.
yeah, it's only, I'd say, maybe 4 feet. There's a mini cone, probably the size of one of these seats, and then probably a 4-foot antenna. So I think that you could still be well within the 90 feet, even with a 10-foot antenna.
So you don't plan to make this at 90
No,
feet anyways?
No, it wouldn't be.
Okay.
90 feet would be probably higher than we would want it.
One,
Yeah.
okay.
But typically, that 90 would be to the top of the
To
billboard.
the top of the billboard.
And then, like John said, typically a Yagi antenna or directional antenna or a dish, they're not so much tall,
Right.
they're more of a directional, like a
Okay.
dish, or a Yagi is a directional antenna, pointing to another repeater on the
Yes.
other side of town.
Okay.
So, sorry to belabor this point, but I'm a little confused. When you reference your possible sites, and say it's 1,800 feet, and then, Bonnie's saying, what about future sites? Are there other possible sites that are not included in your definition of possible sites?
Well, if you just take the frontage along 495, that is going to limit you to, if it's 2,000, that's going to limit you to 4 at the most, and they'd all have to be static, or 2 digitals. So you could only have 2 if they were both digitals, because they have to be, by the state's standard, they have to be 1,000 feet apart.
Right.
So 2,000 is limiting as it is. Between 2 and 4 locations would be the most that could go there, even if the town wanted more than that.
Does this bylaw change affect more land than the land that you've analyzed? Have you looked at the whole strip?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
But I have a pretty good feel for it. I did 3 years ago. I don't know exactly where it stops, but I know between.
So that
I know between the town line and Brit Rigger is pretty much it. I'm intimately familiar with that whole strip. There's a lot of wetlands there, and so there's not that many. There's only a couple of possible sites.
So Mike, the industrial site off of 123 that's being developed, how far is that from this?
We're not zoning this particular area, so this zoning would also apply over
Right,
there.
so,
Yep.
what's the distance between this and that potential commercial site?
It's gotta be over a half mile, right? 'Cause I'm
So you
thinking of
could-
the off-ramp.
So you could put a sign there too.
Possibly one could go there too, based on this zoning.
Well,
Yep.
is it as the crow flies, or is it, what's the determination of distance?
From a sign over here to there.
One sign to another sign, is it?
It would be more than, I would think it would be more than 1,000 feet to that property.
Yeah.
We're talking about footage again, so it's talking erected within 2,000 feet of Interstate 485. Is that 2,000 feet from the center line of 495?
I think that's a
2,000
typo.
feet from the side of the, whatever that, they call that side of the
It would be,
495,
it would be from the layout, so it would be,
from the border, from the edge?
From the
Not from the
edge.
center line,
right, from the edge of 495. And as I said, we'll be changing that.
2,000 feet.
You can't be back more than 500 feet from the edge of the highway.
Oh, 500.
We'll be
Get 'em
proposing that
closer.
change.
Oh, they changed that to 500, that's right.
There's no reason to have 2,000, because you're not gonna put a sign 2,000 feet from 495, because no one would see it, so.
Okay.
Wait, something's back there.
And again, this is just for 495.
Right.
I go by one every morning and most nights, depending on which way I go home, in Canton,
Yep.
right after Napontet Street.
Yep.
So is that very similar? to
Very
which-
similar.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. That's pretty much, that's installed right in, I think, the Shawmut Industrial Park, like where that's located, but you can clearly see it going up 95 and going south 95.
Oh, yeah, yep.
But is that about 90 feet as well?
I would say that I know that the road goes down.
Yeah.
So I don't know it's a little deceiving, where we're pretty level with 495.
Yeah,
That could be 30 feet
Yeah.
of, or 20 feet of drop before that thing is even in the ground. So I don't know, that's a tough one. But it could be. That still even seems a little high, though.
yeah. But it seems as a utilitarian product, it's not offensive to
Right.
what happens. And so I think it's,
Yeah, there's a lot of public service component that's there, too.
And just to wrap that up, so every 50 seconds, there's gonna be something about Norton, something about Massachusetts? Is that-
Yes.
So a continuous loop?
Well, we have
Every
to,
minute?
we've matched the state's mandate, we've offered to match the state's mandate with the town, which is 15 hours each, basically, per month. 15 hours of broken up in
Yep.
in your segment. So it wouldn't equate to a full slot.
Okay,
So
Okay.
probably about maybe a third of that 6 slot, and the rest we try to cycle through additional public service.
and as public service, say there was a meltdown at Pilgrim, would that sign automatically say, evacuation route this way, or
Well, the
would it do
state really
that?
has gotten more involved in it there used to be just 1 or 2 messages that we would circle in. Now there's about 15 different ones that they want equal display time on each. And yes, with a snowstorm coming, they'll request us to display this specific content.
Okay.
So yes, they do that in emergencies.
Lonnie, did you have your?
I did. I just, reading the rest of the section, paragraph D, where it says, the planning board may only issue a special permit upon a finding that the billboard should not endanger the public safety or be detrimental to the neighborhood or constitute a nuisance to any abutting uses or any residential uses by virtue of its size, dimension, location. Like, I feel like this is very protective of any possibility of there being any interruption or problems to residents, which is what you were kind of saying, is that before there were all these questions and problems, and there's been a lot of thought put into how the planning board can address that when granting the special permit in this zoning change.
And the repeater is still being negotiated, because I kind of thought at the selectmen meeting that was a given. But here you're kind of saying, well, we're still in negotiations.
No, it's in the mitigation agreement as an
Okay.
offering. The only thing that hasn't been addressed is who's paying for it. And I have no idea how, I know that in Sharon, the town paid for those. I don't know how much it is.
Okay, okay.
I just got
Rick?
one final question. We talked about the video, the vision, what about the audio? How do you back it up? Do you have a generator?
No,
Do you have a
there's
generator?
no audio.
I mean,
there's
no, I know there's no
uh,
audio, but what about generator? How do you, if power
Just
goes
pow-
up?
It's just power. In fact, it's gonna be a pretty hefty cost to bring power to the structure. We'll have to go underground.
Right.
The property owners, if this site is where we wind up going, the property owners don't want above ground.
Where do you
It's gonna
tie it
be-
in?
Yeah, they don't want to be tied into their stuff.
Right,
It's just
right, so
from
where do you tie it in?
in their driveway, I think there's a generator of some sort, so I've had the installer out there, and he knows how he would tie in, but it's a separate power altogether.
Right, it's an independent power, but
Yeah.
in a noise level, decibels? problem?
No generator, no nothing like that, it's just power.
It's basically a metered service
Yeah,
to the
it's a
utility
service.
company.
Good, yep, meet it up.
So power goes out, the sign goes out.
Yes.
Sorry, one other question. He's not talking about stuff like another question. What's, any like buzz or hum on this thing as you're
No.
sitting there next to it? Okay.
No.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you need any more copies of those, would you like, or?
Do you want it back?
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Or darts at it, try to hit the bullseye.
I got enough things on my wall. That's something new up, I got to.
When the kids stop drawing stuff,
There's a lot of free space on the wall.
That's true.
Thank you.
You may need them for the town meeting. So, we need to vote on this?
Did we vote on it already?
We were waiting for the planning board, they won't
I
wait
think
till
we need to.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's, this is still before the meeting on Wednesday to actually vote?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, because
Planning
we
has
need
to
the exact.
Yeah, okay.
You have two other articles, Article 12 and 13, water and sewer articles. And the Water and Sewer Department and the commissioners are here tonight. The first, Article 12, is the East Main Street Water Main Improvement Project. And someone want to come up and talk about that? They have numbers for you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just want to give you an update on the water improvement project. We have a update, I believe Mike said you guys all have a copy of the new numbers. That's from VHB for Route 123.
Second. Oh, tonight's packet. Now I got this back.
The cost estimate here from VHB is for the water improvements that need to be done to the section of 123 that the state is proposing to widen and do sidewalks on. This is the water department cost. They've come back with an estimate of $620,000, although they recommend asking for $700 for anything that may be unforeseen that they may run into while they get out into the older areas of town.
And this is from where to where?
This would be from Elm Street,
Yep.
Elm at 123,
Yep.
down to, excuse me, down to 495. This is, basically, there's two water mains there. There's a new 16-inch water main, and there's also an older 10-inch cast iron water main. The cast iron is the one that we'd be doing away with. What needs to be done there is obviously transmit all the hydrants that are on the 10-inch over to the 16 and meet the criteria of around 1,000 feet of separation between each. There are a few that they had problems granting easements for, so there's going to be a little bit of discrepancy on some of the distance between the hydrants, but all the services and all the fire connections also have to be tied over as well. That's where this cost comes from. There'll be a few line gates that will be installed, replacing some of the old ones that are in place, and also additional ones that will be added to be able to isolate the area in case of emergency.
The source of funds.
This was coming from the capital. That was the next question.
So we'd be asking for $700,000 out of capital?
No. Is this coming from water retained earnings, or is it being
No,
borrowed?
this was to be borrowed. This project was a borrowed project, I'm sorry.
It'll be paid out of water retained earnings, water revenue.
Okay.
I think Capital just said, yes, you can do it. I think that's all they can do, right? Capital just approves it. Capital doesn't give them the money, they just say, yeah, go ahead,
Right.
with your money.
Capital won't be funding it, but anything that's borrowed,
Borrowed, has to go through Capital.
capital has to vote to approve.
Okay. Any questions?
No, good. Thank you.
Did you want to vote on that before moving on to the next one?
You can. Need a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Peter?
I make a motion that we recommend Article 12.
Second?
You have to give the amount.
Is it 620 or 700?
700.
700 is what we were
The amount of
we're told to ask.
700,000 to be
Borrowed?
borrowed, yes.
Who was the second?
Amy.
Motion and a second to approve Article 12 for 700,000 funds to be borrowed. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you.
And the next article for the Water and Sewer Department is the West Main Street Sewer Project. And they recently got their bids back last Thursday. And Luke Grant, the chairman of the commission, can talk to you about the results of that bid.
Thanks, Mike. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As we have gotten our bids back and there's some dynamic to this, I'm going to introduce Steve Peterson from Weston and Sampson. He's going to pass out a handout so you folks can follow along with him, kind of just bringing everybody up to speed on what's been going on from the background on this and pretty much where we are today. So if you just bear with us a minute, I think it'll clarify a little bit of what's going on.
All right, thank you, Luke. As Luke said, I'm Steve Peterson with Weston and Sampson Engineers. So we're here to talk about the West Main Street Sewer Project, which has been in design for the past couple of years in various stages. What I handed out is kind of a draft of a presentation that kind of tells the whole story. I'd like to go through that quickly with you. I'll start by going to the end and telling you where we're at. So we've opened bids. I'll cut to the chase. We opened bids, and based on the money we have now, we need an additional $1.5 million in order to build the project. So I will go through this and talk to you about where we started and where we're at now and how we got to where we are. So the first page, the second slide there, so from a background, just so everyone remembers, I guess first I should make sure everyone's familiar with where the West Main Street Sewer Project is. So it goes from the Housing Authority up on West Main Street, down to Taunton Ave, turns onto Taunton Ave, and then on Howard Street and Fillmore, down to the pump station that the commission installed on the campus of Wheaton College. They installed that a couple of years ago now. That one went online, that pump station. It serves Wheaton College now. We took their treatment plant offline, and then there's a force main that goes out of that and pumps out to the MFN treatment plant, as well as picking up the LG North School along the way with another piece of gravity sewer. So that is a previous phase of the sewer. It was always the intention that the sewer would continue on the other side. That station there was built to handle West Main Street and a lot of the village commercial properties along 123 and other needs areas. The intent when that sewer was built is that it would probably be more than a few years before we build the next phase. I think we looked at numbers like 5-6 years out. But what happened is as soon as construction was completing on the town center sewer station, the Norton Housing Authority, Woodland Meadows approached the commission. Their system was in failure. They needed to build a treatment plant, and they wanted to talk to the commission about, instead of building a treatment plant, is there some way that they could work together to extend sewers up that way. It also involves the Norton School Department, because along the route, there's the high school and the Yale School, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, I think, on the next slide. So basically, from the commission standpoint, they have a comprehensive wastewater management plan in place. The phase where the Wheaton College pump station was built. The next phase of the sewer would be to come up West Main Street. And so that's what we're talking about here. So the next, so these are double-sided. So Woodland Meadows property's got recurring on-site septic system problems. Basically, their options are to put in a treatment plant or to find a municipal sewer extension or connection. So that's what started this whole impetus of moving this project at the current pace that it's at. So they basically have grant monies available that were initially intended to build a treatment plant. The intent is they've agreed. So there's been a process between the commission and the housing authority for a connection to go under agreement for this connection. And basically, at this point, what DHCD, Department of, what's DHCD? Department of Housing? Community Development. I can't remember the communities. They've committed the full amount of their grant, which is just over 1.1 million, plus a connection fee that totals the rest of the money. So 1.376 million is what DHCD is committed to put towards building this project. And they would prefer a connection to the municipal sewer as opposed to, they'd like to get out of the sewer business altogether and not build their own treatment plant. And it's in everyone's best interest to do that. So along the same time, the Norton School Department has their own issues, because one thing that the Housing Authority looked into was tying into the treatment plant. So the school has a treatment plant at the middle school, and currently the high school and the Yale school are connected to that treatment plant. And the Housing Authority, one of their first options that they looked at was seeing if they could tie into that plant. And not only did DEP deny that, they also basically, pointed out to the school department that you guys have to do something because you're not meeting permit right now. So the plant down at the middle school is not incapable of meeting their nitrogen permit limits. So one of the immediate things that this project would do would be to take the high school and the Yale school off of the middle school plant and be able to tie into the new sewer and bring it down to the pump station at Wheaton and flow into the MFN plant. And so the schools also are looking to get out of the sewer business if at all possible. So that's the genesis of the project. Those are the big parts of why we're trying to move this project forward. The map is kind of what I've already described as far as the service area. So here's the information that we're really here to talk about tonight. So project cost update. So a year ago, the estimate was 4.2 million, basically 3 million for construction, with a total estimated project cost of 4.2 million, based on preliminary design information and what we had available to us at the time. And that 4.2 million is the current appropriation amount. So that's what has been authorized for expenditure. As we moved into the design and the year went on here, it was clear, based on other bids that we were seeing coming in, that prices were continuing to escalate. So we knew prices were escalating at a pace higher than we've seen in some time. So construction prices are definitely going up. So we knew that we were in jeopardy of not having enough money. So one thing we did is we reserved the article on town meeting, and instead of coming in with another estimate, we said, let's get real prices. So let's go out for bid. So that's what we did. We went out for bid. We opened bids on May 9th. We received 3 bids, and the low bid is actually just under 4.2 million, which is the total amount of the appropriation. Now, within the appropriation, there are other costs. It's not just the cost of construction, it's all the other stuff that goes with it. So when you look at all the other costs of the engineering support, police details, you might need fire details out here with all the rock out on that road if blasting's required, and other auxiliary costs. The total estimated cost of the project is 5.7 million. So that's where the $1.5 million additional money needed to build the project comes from. So those are the numbers. Yep.
So in 1 year, your estimates are up 28%?
That is correct.
Costs have gone up that much?
The costs,
28%?
The costs have come up significantly. Construction costs are rising. Now, the quantities, have also, it's a unit price job, so there's all these different quantities on the job. The requirements of the permit on the state highway have significantly increased the tonnage of pavement, so the quantity of paving has increased significantly, so there are additional costs in some of the quantities, but then also the unit prices themselves are continuing to rise.
It's exactly what Steve mentioned, I don't want to make it look like there was an oversight. What the parameters changed
Okay, all right.
during the course of the project process.
Yep.
So rather than continue estimating and back and forth with the state about what we're going to do, we went to bid. These are hard numbers. The three bids are very close to each other, so we think the numbers that we got from the contractors, the project's doable, because I know your next question is going to be, well, what if these people go over? There's a contingency factor in the extra $1 million, extra $1.5 million, but again, the parameters changed by the state, the required amount of paving, the material we have to put in under the pavement
Okay.
is concrete, it's flowable fill. State highway requires all flowable fill in the excavation, so on and so forth. I don't want to bore you with the particulars. We have, oh, he's got a couple other cost increases.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, actually, the project changed. That's really what happened.
Right.
So with that 1.5 million increase, do you have it broken down into scope of work, direct applied cost, material cost?
So we have a price from the low bidder of, which is 4.2 million, it's like 4.19. And I think those numbers might be further in the presentation here, but, so that's the actual, based on the quantities in the bid form and his prices, that's what the bids, the commission would have to enter into contract with a contractor for 4.2 million. And then the other costs are, so you have to have a contingency, this is SRF funded, you have to have a contingency anyway, but the SRF requires a 5% contingency before they'll sign off on the loan, just on the construction. The work out on the highway, the more we've looked at it, the police details, the significance of the police details can't be overlooked. It's not going to be cheap to have safety out there during this work. There's the construction oversight, the engineering oversight, which is all going to be affected by the production rates of the contractor. So those are a lot of the remaining variable costs.
Which we anticipate being allowed to perform this task at night.
I think if we go to the next slide, we'll talk about a lot of this stuff.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Which is fine, however you guys want to handle it. But, so the next slide is the cost increase factor. So what have we been talking about? So the biggest thing is the bidding climate. I mean, anyone that's watching construction, every project we see, it's getting harder and harder to figure out where these prices are coming. It's a contractor's market. It's the prices are rising and have been for the 2 years that we've been talking about doing this project. I talked about the state highway permit requirements. That's the added quantities and requirements of paving. There's a significant amount of work that they're requiring out there. The challenges being on the high traffic road. We also have all the school bus traffic, for the 4 schools that are out on West Main Street, which leads to requirement for night work on this project. We've talked at length about different timeframes to do it. If we were going to try and do it during the day, the window that we were going to be squeezed into was like a 4-hour window that we could work during the day. So, not only, with that small of a window, you're just going to prolong the length of time that you're out there. The total time would be a lot longer. So night work at least affords the contractors on a daily basis a legitimate window of time to actually get some production done and make progress.
By night work, are we talking all the way through the night?
Yeah.
Stopping at midnight, or?
No, we're talking all the way through the night.
So the
Talking till like 5 a.m.
The residential properties there are gonna have, listening to jackhammers, backhoes, whatever, all through the night.
There will be night work, and it's a linear project, so we'll be moving along. Won't be in one spot the whole time, but yes, that is one of the necessary evils of it. And I think the counter to that is what I was starting to say, what I was saying before is, the biggest benefit of it is that the overall time of disruption will be shortened. Because if they're out there 4 hours a day, they'll be out there for a year and a half or 2 years. If we can be out there for 8 or 9 hours at a time, they should only be out there for, 5 or 6 months, out on the road.
I have two
Amy?
questions.
Sure.
The first question I have is, with these rapidly escalating construction costs, do we have any ability to go back to our friends at DHCD and say, hey, it's now going to cost you $700,000 more to build your own treatment plant than it was going to 2 years ago? Give us a little bit of relief on this, because
question, 'cause
we are building this now because you need it.
We've asked that very question. The issue we have is we probably will not have an answer by Wednesday.
You're not going to get an answer from the state this week? Come on.
We heard back, which is encouraging, but it was only that we understand what you're looking for and we'll look into it.
Okay.
They didn't say no.
It's a good start.
And there was no check, so we're somewhere in between.
I guess my second question is, do we know what, now that we have some firm costs, do we have any idea what this is going to cost ratepayers?
So, yes, I mean, we've run the numbers.
You mean the,
So in terms of the capital
Tie-in?
costs,
The capital costs that'll get distributed among everyone tied into the sewer system, I'm assuming that's how this will all work out.
so there are multiple ways that it's being paid for, and one of them is betterments.
Right.
One of the chunks of the work is betterments, and that's the breakdown that we could go, that we have, we can go into a little more detail on that, I guess. So you've got the total costs of 5.7 million, you've got the money from DHCD that comes off the top of that. And I don't have that sheet in front of me, do I? So the schools are a big part of this too, and based on, they're paying a cost based on the percentage of flow that they're putting into the new system. So because the schools don't get assessed a betterment, they get paid, they're going to pay it through through the school. And so their fee comes out to, which one is theirs? About 1.4 million, based on about 25% of the flow coming from the schools that are being fronted along the way. So the money paid by the schools comes off the top of that. The betterments right now, we're looking at $15,000 as the betterment for the
So
fronted
every
properties.
homeowner and
Business
commercial,
per unit. So a single, 15,000 is a one betterment unit, which is equivalent to a single-family home,
okay.
the flow of a single-family home. So a commercial property that has flow that it would equate to 5 single-family homes would pay 5 betterments.
So,
If you have a high water user, it's all based on water use. So the people who are using the more water are paying would pay a higher betterment.
so how is that spread out for a homeowner?
So they can pay it over 20 years.
Are
They
there-
can apportion it through their taxes over 20 years. At an interest rate of what, 2.5?
I think it was 2.5, 2.4.
2.5.
So they can take out a loan or apply somehow to take out a loan for $15,000?
It would literally be put through on their tax bill, they would have an assessment. There's no need for application, right?
Nope.
It's,
So they can either pay it up front or they can apportion
They
it
can-
over time. If they choose to not pay it up front, it goes automatically to their tax bill as a line item, separate line item over 20 years.
And if they don't want to hook up, how much time do they have to fight
the
that?
current environment is 5 years to hook up, right?
The fee gets assessed whether they hook up or not. The betterment gets paid regardless of whether they hook up. But they have 5 years to decide whether to hook in.
So the 15,000 is just the fee for this going past
That's their
house.
share of the capital
But
cost.
then to connect is then an additional fee.
Correct, they have to pay.
So does that
to
get
tie in.
rolled into the 2.5% loan, or they have to come out of pocket for like $5,000 to $10,000 more dollars to dig up their yard and hook?
That would be an extra expense.
But can that be tied into the 2.5% loan, or?
No, it's
No.
different.
So
It's
that-
not. It's different, because they have to hire their own contractor. So the sewer stubs will be left off the road to the edge, of
Yep,
beyond the
yep.
limits of the road onto their property.
This involves public work and prevailing wage rate stuff and municipal-type contracts. The work on private property doesn't need to adhere to the same rules and regs.
So they can
But-
hire
but it's still
anyone
not-
to tie in?
That's correct.
But it's still not cheap.
Somebody on the list, of sewer installers of the town.
Okay.
So
So they could call the building inspector's office and get a
Sewer
list
department.
of, or the sewer department.
Yep.
So what's the count of number of people that have to tie into this? How many?
How many people that have to tie in? So right now, there's, I think it's like 106 betterment units.
6?
Yep. And so it's not 106 properties, because some of them are more than one unit, so it's probably more like 80 properties or something like that.
Probably more like 80.
Properties.
I think there are
How
some
many regular
condos,
people like
some,
me, like say if I was there? 80? So 80 people?
Residential,
Is it 80?
no, like 40 to 50.
40 or 50?
Probably, yeah.
West Main, so it's.
But there are still,
There are
there are some houses.
There are
throughout
definitely
there,
homes out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a,
in front of the high school,
When I go to
right
Fax-
all along the
Fax
front of the high
40
school.
Right, there's that little.
Right.
Greatly had 5 or
And then there's
12,000
the-
whack.
Right.
Yeah,
Plus
the multi-unit
The betterment.
housing.
And then like a place like CVS, I'm assuming would be multiple.
Depends on their water use records, yeah. So the CVS doesn't use a lot of water, I forget if they're 1 or 2 units. But the brewery would be a
Bog
big,
Iron,
would be a
yeah.
big, that would be a big one.
Huge.
That would be-
yeah. Kevin, did you?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Your point, I think this mic can probably pick me up. Your point about the nighttime disruption with construction going on during the evening hours, if the project can be done in 5 to 6 months during the day, I was going to ask through you if they've considered doing half of the construction during the summer months when school's not in session.
So, I didn't understand, during the day, it would probably take a couple of years to do the work.
But what Kevin's saying is, boots to the ground as soon as school ends, and then you got the daytime, no buses and all that kind of stuff.
Full schedule during the day.
Yeah.
Day and night?
So not to disrupt.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be done over multiple years to do it that way.
And I'm not sure that the state allows you to break up apples and oranges. I think it's a night project, and they've been kind of leaning towards allowing us.
I mean, the state was the first one that,
They haven't
told us.
granted us the night work permit yet, but if you get that, they don't say, oh, do alternating days on Wednesdays and when when odd and even. It's night work or it's not, and it's also bid prevailing wage and whatnot by the contractors, who obviously have higher expenses for night work with light towers and probably a little bit of lack of production. Everybody would rather do it during the day, in the summer, without rain, without ledge, and anything else you can put on, free fuel, and that sort of thing. The best scenario we have from all the engineering, all the construction, all the state, all the local, all the school, is to do it at night, as quickly as we can through the summer, and even the summer itself at night would provide cooler, easier work for the folks doing the work. And I know it's a problem for the people it goes by, but they're hoping to get around 100 to 150, maybe 180 feet of production per day. So it will be a slow-moving anaconda going by your house, and then it will be gone.
Is
And we
there
did-
sound mitigation while you're like right in front of someone's house?
We'll have giant white noise machines, so you'll hear like the ocean.
Is there?
Who buys that?
Is there
It's
something
it's
that
an
can be?
excavator
I understand that.
See his
Can
face?
something,
and a backup alarm. Did you like it? I had you with the white noise.
Not at any type of reasonable
nothing that
cost.
can,
You have audible backup alarms so people don't get run over,
Yeah,
police
yeah, yeah.
details, construction laborers, stray motorists driving on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Hey, somebody ended up in White's Bakery over in Mansfield a couple of weeks ago.
I would say to the,
Not on purpose.
to the night work, there was a stakeholder meeting that we had here that had, members of the Board of Selectmen, fire, police, the schools, the Mass DOT, and it came out of that meeting. The night work was a unanimous discussion. The schools pushed really hard for it, that he just couldn't see how you could do it during the day. Just couldn't see how that could happen.
Mike,
Steve, can you just talk about the hopeful schedule starting at the pump station on Wheaton and
Yeah.
getting to the schools? How quick is that, hopefully?
Yeah, so there's a lot of specific requirements that are kind of driving the schedule, the scope and sequence of work of the contractor. He has to start down on Wheaton, because we need the pipe, we need the gravity sewer coming out of the pump station and up the hill. One thing we need is we need to get the high school and the Yale school tied into the new sewer. Because one thing we're doing to try and help the construction on 123 is there's an abandoned water main out there that we're going right in the same trench as the abandoned water main that, hopefully gets us 70% of the way down to where we need to be. But the issue with it is the sewer that we're talking about that goes from the high school and the Yale school down to the middle school is slip-lined through that. So we want to tie the high school and the Yale school in so that we can continue to take out, to be in that corridor and be in a previously disturbed trench. That should help move things through there more quickly. They should encounter less boulders because they've hopefully already been excavated and things like that. So it just makes sense. And then when we get to the housing authority, the plan is so that force main that currently pumps from the high school and the Yale down to the treatment plant at the middle school, will reconnect it into the manhole that flows down to the pump station at the housing authority to give the middle school the ability to then flip the flow around, turn their treatment plant into a pump station and pump back up and in. I don't know how I got on that tangent, but I was answering a question. Hopefully that answered it.
You did good.
wasn't there a presentation within the last year that indicated that that old sewer line is here, but you guys have to be down here, and so you're not really saving anything because all this is ledge and there was a presentation. to that
Yeah,
effect.
it might have been at the town meeting. So we definitely need to go deeper.
It's been excavated to approximately 6 feet for the water mains. Water mains in general are 5 feet below pavement. This is a large pipe. I don't know whether it's a 12-inch or whatever, but it's give or take been excavated to 6 feet. So assuming the folks put back decent material, it will be excavatable to 6 feet with some degree of certainty.
And we got to go another 3 feet.
Right.
So whatever's below there, we still have
Here
to
and
deal
there.
with.
Secondly, this state highway has been inundated with every imaginable utility you can conceive. Everything is in the road. Every strip of bacon, if you will, is full. So we would gladly move over 3 feet and play under our white noise machine in the middle of the day without rain with free fuel and run down that corridor, but there's nothing left. So we're going to excavate where the pipe was put. And another 3 or 4 feet. It won't be easy, but it's not going to be as difficult.
So if you need to do blasting, you mentioned blasting earlier, will the blasting take place at night?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay.
Initially, the contractors, all these days, I'm sure you've all seen them, they have hammers. They have rather large hammers, which also are somewhat noisy and impact the rock. But prior to blasting, they would certainly be gnawing on some rock with the hammers. The blasting is invasive to the other utilities in the road, water mains, gas mains, little things like that. So they're not going to jump right to blast.
I mean, the previous history out here is there's a lot of boulders, so hopefully a lot of them will be able to be pulled out.
Little thing.
Gas mains.
Yeah.
Mike?
I know you can't predict with certainty, but if there's work in front of somebody's house, how long do they have to suffer with that? Is it a week, 2 weeks, a month?
Not a week. It feels like up probably between 100 and 150 feet a day should be the progress. And so,
Hopefully.
yeah, so if you've got a 5-day or 5-night construction, what's that, 700, 600 feet a week?
Just to give you a feel for.
So by the time you get used to it, it's gone.
I don't think they'll
It's
ever
gonna be a
get used to
neighbor,
it.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
Mike, and just remember, as Steve said, there's no guarantee the state's gonna let us do the work at night. We've asked them, but they have the final say.
Well,
And-
it's interesting, because they,
I mean, we did send letters supporting it from the schools and the town, but they have the final say, because they said they're the ones that get the calls, because it's state highway, so.
I mean, interesting about that is the first comment letter that came back from the state said we had to do it at night. So
Right.
they started the ball rolling.
And again, it's always about the money. You guys know this better than anybody. It's about the money. If it were equally expensive, only slightly more expensive, we'd do it during the day. And if we could break it up into different sections, we'd try to do it in a couple of different summers. With the middle school situation, taking the Yell and the high school flow, you can't really break the project up. This is a big chunk of that whole West Main Street sewer link, if you will. It's a little bit of pain, but this will take us quite a ways. It opens up that whole side of town to the sewer, and once we get this through, we don't have to do it again. It's once.
So, I might be going off on a tangent here. So the current political climate, do any of the tariffs that are being talked about impact your materials? So if they're charging,
Other than the white noise machine from China, no.
so nothing else
I got Wiggins.
nothing else is gonna impact this?
The materials are local.
The pipes and all
if I'm
that
not-
kind of stuff?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, our materials have to be US made, is that?
American steel.
American
Iron and
steel.
steel.
Like in the
But all the
water,
pipe, I mean, yeah,
in the water
I mean, at this
treatment plant
point,
now, it's all American stuff, so. This is, again, is the reason for the expense, but we're okay with that because it's all available.
Okay.
Whether or not each gate valve is at the local supplier is a different story, but it's in the States. And it's just a matter of staging, timing, and buying.
Yep. Okay. Mike, the 1.4 million that was quoted to be school expense, is that in future budgets, or, I mean,
That is coming, that'd be in borrowing. So that won't be in that won't be in the school budget. It'll be that money spread out over 20 years of the bonds.
so the 1.4 million will be, okay. Rick?
I was just gonna follow up on what you said, but just go a little bit different direction. So today was a big bond day if you had investments, so 2%, is that guaranteed, assured?
the SRF loan
Yeah.
is a 2% loan, yeah.
As long as we start construction, and start construction is a loose term, by the end of June,
We have to sign a contract with a contractor by the end of June, for
So
the loan that we're on now, for that
At
SRF loan,
at
at 2%.
2%.
And there's also some additional
And-
subsidy, principal forgiveness within that loan, to the tune of about $175,000 that doesn't have to get paid back.
Think
So
about
there's a
it.
little bit of,
Yeah, think about it
Little
like
bit of
a little
incentive
bit of
there.
credit card points back from the lovely state of this. This is one time where they help you.
Walter, you,
Yeah, are we taking any opportunities to make any road improvements, straightening, new sidewalks, wider roads, anything? Or are we just gonna put it back exactly the way we found it?
This is a state road. If I'm not mistaken, the state is requiring us to pave fully 1/3 or
they
More.
require at least lane width and in some areas curb to curb. They're
so
requiring.
in areas where we're into
But-
the center line of the road, we're paving the road.
Yeah, we're trying to stay out of the center line.
And when we can stay over into the side where that old water main is, we're paving that lane. The state is very specific on that, and the state is very strict on its thickness and type, so it's a state spec asphalt, where we would pave as a town, maybe 4 inches of asphalt, the state requires 8, 8, double. So you got 4 tires in your car, they want you to have 8. So this is another reason.
Okay, so.
We're definitely putting back more pavement than what's there now.
But I
based on the
think
permit.
that-
But there are no additional,
No curbing, no.
we're not adding any
It's
sidewalk.
a state road, it's
Yeah.
really their road that we're being allowed to open and close and do what we need to do.
Gotcha. All right.
But as far as changing direction, I don't think we want to go for that permit.
Well, I was just thinking even bike lanes or sidewalks on both sides, anything
Right.
like that. But, okay.
We've been chasing this for so long, my memory is a little loose, but remind me, is this the first cost increase that we've had this? It seems to me 4.2 million wasn't the original.
No, this is the second, yeah.
This is the
So
second. The first one was 500,000?
Yeah, wasn't it like-
800, the first increase was 800,000.
Yeah.
First was 800,000.
Yeah,
Right.
yep.
So we were.
Yeah, so the original vote in 2017,
So we've gone
and then
from
this- and-
3.4 to,
The first,
what's the number we get to where we just go,
yeah, I understood, you know, and that's why we wanted to come with real numbers, actual bid numbers, and not with another estimate. I understand it's a lot, we all do.
going back, the first estimate, with all due respect to the engineers, was done without the subsurface borings.
right?
So they took into account what was in the road, they actually made some assumptions about the road layout and the corridor that they could put the sewer in, and after they got some more supplemental plans from the state, there were drainage structures that were in part of the spot where they wanted to be, which would have made it easy. I know it doesn't make sense, but this is the why. And then when we got to the next spot, we had the borings, and now finally, we have the borings and the actual engineer's proposal. So this is really what it will cost.
Historically, I think you're gonna ask us, or you're gonna wanna go in front of town meeting to say, hey, we have another cost increase. We did that with the water treatment plant, and people went ballistic. At some point, people are gonna say, why can't you get these numbers fairly accurate the first time? That this,
We got the ball rolling at 50% less than where we are now.
One other question, you might have answered it with all the talk, but, because we got going on the betterment fees and what that cost is, what's gonna be the average cost increase? Or what's the average sewer, person paying for sewage now gonna pay more because of this? How do I put that?
That's
The
the
user
right
fees?
question.
You talking about the user fees?
User fees.
I mean, ultimately, it will help the user fees to have more users online paying user fees. You know, the infrastructure that we're adding isn't going to exceed the revenue that they get based on the current rates. So I don't, this
Increase.
extension alone will not result in a rate increase.
Should be a push, or in your theories, it will share the current expenses of infrastructure in the plan and whatnot, not this infrastructure, but among more users. And as an added bonus, the plant has been remodeled and increased in size to handle more capacity. So it's really advantageous of us, if you can look aside from the money, the inconvenience in the road, to use more capacity in the plant that we've just remodeled to take more capacity. So we have this plant that can rip through all the sewer that Mansfield, Foxborough, and Norton can put in, so now we have to add sewer. We have to add capacity. More users to the same structure, less cost per user.
So if I had water and sewer right now, my bill was $100 a month. This project doesn't add anything to it, just.
Doesn't change your life at all.
Okay.
Hopefully, the sewer rates won't go up because you share more users with the plant expenses. As the plant expenses increase, one of the remodels that we had to do with the plant was a Barden flow update to take care of nitrogen required by the DEP, blah, blah, blah. Very expensive. We did that with an expansion of the plant, but that will be shared by more people in the coming years, and that's obviously a good thing. And as you go down that corridor that we're serving, the soils are poor, the water table's high. There's not a lot of places you could efficiently put a septic system. Everybody will say, oh, mine works today, but you have people running a cesspool from the 1940s that really isn't working. I know it. Folks who vac septage, the sewer haulers, they know it. The people need to hook up. It's better for the groundwater. It's a little pain now, but for our town and our community, it's a huge improvement.
So let's ask Peter's question a different way. Let's say my annual water bill is $500, and I'm currently on septic. What am I going to be paying sewer and septic at the end of this project?
Sewer and water, septic's done.
Sewer and water.
I don't know the rate. Does Frank know the rate?
It would all depend on your gallons. I don't know if we know what the average rate is right now. Frank, you don't know what the average sewer.
Exactly.
What's that? Water and sewer rates are close?
I'm hearing it's your water rate, so double your water rate.
Is close to what?
Close.
To what you
Okay.
expect.
So if I'm paying $500 for water right now, and every 2 years I spend $300 to pump my septic.
Right.
Now I'm paying $1,000 a year, and I no longer have to deal with the septic.
That's correct.
So effectively, you went from 650 to 1,000 per year on average.
Yeah.
Just one added thing to that, your real estate will go up, your property value goes up.
It does.
Yeah. Means
Is
nothing
that
to me right now
proven?
when I'm paying the bills.
Huh? Is that proven?
Oh, yeah.
Is that proven?
I'm not sure it is.
I'm not sure that's proven. I don't know.
I'm certainly not
I
sure
don't
it's
think I could get
proven.
more from my house if it was hooked up to
Any
sewage or
commercial
something.
property and residential.
Com-
not sure.
Commercial, I'm gonna say yes. Residential, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I don't know.
But just so we're clear, we're now asking those residents to dish out this much more money.
It's true.
That hasn't changed from any of the previous votes.
Right, I mean, I think you should.
That's still the same issue that it's been.
Right.
You're right, it doesn't,
Right.
it is an issue. That is
But it
part of-
doesn't make it any easier.
Nope.
When we have all these grand plans in this town to do certain things, and we're saying, well, 200 here from your pocket, 300 here, another 1,000 here, you know, the pocket's only so deep. So I think it, needs to be expressed, what that cost is.
One more thing, so if this is probably the presentation you'll have at town meeting probably, this.
Right.
I would suggest on the cost increase factors, to make it a little more clear and have some, maybe not more numbers, but a little clearer of like, these things actually increase the cost. For example, you have night work required, just say that night work requires isn't an added cost. I know it says cost increase factors, but
Yeah.
I think the average person won't, they see the thing and they say, night work required, yeah, but I think if you said, a little more explanation on that to give people an idea of
Yeah.
that's why it's increased. And then another section, I think, of, an average water bill now that you have that with your septic and show them, some average numbers, I think at least you'll tell the people outright, this
that's-
is what's gonna be, you know?
That's a good point. Sometimes we think too macro and
Yeah.
the overall stuff,
You're
but
gonna affect
to take
40 to
it,
50 people are gonna be really,
no,
upset.
I understand that. To take it to each door and each driveway
yeah.
and each person. I understand that. Thank you.
Well, even as we're, you know, this is step 2, you know, I keep hearing, you know, step 3 is like Reservoir Street, step 4 is X. People should know this
Right.
as it's happening. That A, it's gonna cost you so many thousand as it sits in front of your house. B, estimated to connect. C, your additional bill every year.
Right.
And we still don't know what the new water treatment plant is going to cost.
No.
So that's another,
Because the bill is based on current costs, not,
right.
yeah.
So we haven't yet been able to estimate what ratepayers will be paying for clean water when we eventually get there. So that's something else. If I mean, I don't have sewer, but if I lived on West Main Street and at some point in the next 24 months got my assessment for my new sewer that's running past my house, and then 3 weeks later got my water bill with the increased rates because the treatment plant has come online, I might have an aneurysm and drop dead. Just saying. It's a possibility.
But your water will be clean.
I hope so, because I put some white stuff in the wash today, and I kind of went like that before I closed
I
the
knew we
lid.
could get here. We start on solar, we end up on washing machine. Not to get off topic, this will be one and done. We do have a water rate study happening as we speak. Our experts are putting all our information through their accounting software and internal thoughts and what our expenditures are, and are coming up with what we will need to do going
new
forward.
plan.
And we will come up with adequate warning for all budgets, institutions, residents alike.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Just one.
No, thank you, we listened last
Another
time.
question.
That was not good.
What
I don't want to
other,
do that again.
What other future projects coming down the pipe, say the next 3 to 5 years?
We have a water project on Holmes Street out towards the eastern line. We have a water project on Plain Street. These are approved, not yet started. As you can well imagine, what we're trying to do is gather our factors and whatnot, what happens with the treatment facility, how that reacts to everything, and then we're going to move ahead on that side. Separately, obviously, the sewer is a very big thing for us, so this is really what's in our target right now with the sewer. In conjunction with the water, it's that state article, I guess it was your Article 12 or our Article 12, the water on East Main Street headed towards the highway, as required by the state. Certainly will help. We weren't looking for that at this time. It's a huge number. It's going to make a lot of things better, but as you grind and repave that road, we don't want to rip it open again.
So on our major throughways, we could be seeing several projects impacting additional. So from this project all the way down to the new Leonard Street project, I'll call, is going to be one. Anything on 140 going out towards
This,
the reservoir?
this one is only a little bit, from the Wheaton College, it's a block. It's a little jump onto 140, the leg towards Taunton.
Yep.
And then, I guess Taunton Ave, right?
Yeah,
Then you-
just to Howard Street.
Yeah,
Okay.
then you jump right onto 123 and 140 will be done.
There is a stub that will be, as we come by Mansfield Ave, 140 going towards Reservoir, there'll be a stub left beyond where we resurface in that area. So
Okay.
there is a future plan, it's not imminent, but there is
Not
a
what you
future
would-
plan to run a
yeah.
sewer up that street.
Not
But
what you would call 1,000 or even 500 feet, just some work, and to get onto 123 is really where we want to go.
So basically, Article 12 and 13 here, 123 for the next couple of years, just avoid it.
123.
That's easy enough.
Yeah,
The other roads we have available.
I don't need to come to town hall anyway.
There
Never
you
here.
go.
Cross
Chairman?
town
Yep.
there 3 times a day.
One note on Article 13, what is, I'm trying to find the amount that Article 13 is actually,
It's
There's-
1.5 million.
It's 1.5. There's no amount in there right now.
there's no amount in there right now. Where would it be put?
It's
We- There's a blank,
Sum of money.
That's such sum of money,
yeah,
just before that?
I don't have the article in front of me. Yeah, there should be a line.
Instead of.
That's such a moment, right in the middle.
I don't think I have it either.
Right?
Or a sum of money. Okay. So we can't actually, so that number is gonna be 1.5?
Right, so then it adds to the two that are down here, and it equals 5.7.
Yep, gotcha. And is that your recommendation?
We have to do something.
Yeah.
Gotta vote on it.
Chairman?
Peter?
I recommend Article 13, and we replace a sum of money, or put something in there that says 1.5 million.
Second.
So that 1.5 million goes with the sum of money.
For the purpose of designing, constructing sewerage, and it's raised or appropriated, it's gonna be, not, it's gonna be borrowed, right? Borrowed.
Yeah, we need to say.
And so for the total borrowing of 5.7 million?
Well, I think the article, the article says 3.32
Plus.
May of 2017, the next May 2018, 880, and now this one, to be a total of 4.2. I don't know if we have to put that in there, but it's in the article anyways.
I believe we've already approved.
We have
borrowing
approved those two.
3.32, and we approved the 880, and now we just need to approve 1.5 more.
Bless you.
Maybe for a cumulative total, I don't know enough about, I'm sure Mike
We need
can,
to
I
approve it
I would
in
put
total,
in,
right?
yeah,
Total amount, though.
you'd have to put in the total amount, because people
Well,
are just gonna ask.
I mean, the total amount is 1.5. I think we put it under our notes as a finance committee, that the total amount being, when you explain the article. Because it's not, it doesn't need to be in the article.
This is
The
what
article
we're
is just to
getting,
borrow
right?
the money,
It'll be in the motion.
be in the motion, I guess, right? The
So we'll-
motion's still for 1.5.
Right. So we're gonna have a disconnect already going in, packets handed out to what the town people are gonna read. This is what the town people are gonna read, and then anything we vote here, we have to explain.
Right.
Yeah.
Did I say it's gonna be late that night?
That's fine, I'm fine, we continue to do that to everybody, where we give them one thing, and then we're voting on these things at the last minute, so you're at a disconnect, and I think people are getting fed up is what we keep hearing for that stuff, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, that was a factor that we didn't have the bids until Thursday. We just got the number.
And before I act on my motion in second, so you have a contingency built into that, and I know if it wasn't myself, I know someone else has asked. So what happens if during the project, you
they don't find any ledge,
No,
everything
they.
falls together.
Yeah, no. They
Fine.
They find more ledge, yeah.
Fine,
Indian
they
burial
see it,
ground.
all right.
So what happens when you go through the 5.7, you still got a quarter of a mile to get to the end? Now what?
They,
We can't spend more than's been authorized, so that's why we have the contingency in there. So, yeah, I guess the answer is, we haven't been authorized to spend more than 5.7 million, so.
Yeah, but you can't.
Project will stop.
You can't just stop, because then it can't be,
it doesn't stop, it's unit prices for the contingencies would mostly address the ledge and/or blasting, all based on unit prices, so the engineers measure the quantity of, they call it unsuitable or unbreakable, the volume gets quantified. Again, every 300 feet during this course of this project, they drilled to the depth that we need to be. We believe they know what's there.
and.
It's not a blind guess, we didn't use
Right.
infrared ground technology, they drilled. They physically drilled the road. in the area where the pipe's going to be.
And I guess one last question.
And you're right, it can always get worse.
Yeah, right.
We live in a some will be worse and some will be not as bad scenario. That's
Right.
where it's gonna be.
Right.
Some will be like, oh, we made 200 feet today, and some days like, we're gonna be like, we made 80 feet.
And what's the total insurance for, you go and buy my house, blasting, and now I got this big crack in my ceiling? Is there insurance for that?
Folks, yeah, the folks who do the actual blasting,
Yep.
they do what's called surveys.
Pre-blast survey.
Yeah, so pre-blast, they'll be in foundations, with, like I said, the many utilities in the road. It's a huge, huge policy.
So
They are
that,
very well covered. Again, all municipal requirements. I'm not sure the bonding and the fleet general liability policy the contractor has and the contracting blaster. I can assure you they're substantial.
so as they're going down the road, they'll knock on my door and say, hey,
If they have to shoot, if they have to blast.
They have to get a permit from the fire department.
Right.
In order to be able to blast. And in order to get a
Not at
permit.
like 2 in the morning, we're doing it now. Like the day before.
We'll do the knocking
That'll be a
during
field,
the day.
that will be a field crew.
That will only be at my house.
That will be a field crew of surveyors during the day.
Okay.
Not so much in
We
the
have
middle of the
permission to
night.
knock on doors during
wouldn't
the
you
day.
prefer
We'll
to
be
be
asking for
woken
keys.
up before the,
I have children. I'm woken up on the regular. It's all good.
See, now they'll be looking out their windows, they'll be like, oh, there's a loader, there's an
This is
excavator.
awesome.
It's gonna be a heck of a time.
all right. So
No charge for the entertainment and the video.
So I have a motion and a second for Article 13 to, what is this, borrow an additional 1.5
Yes.
million. Any further discussion? Not sure I'm ready to vote for this, but all those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, one vote.
So tonight, we have, the Permanent Building Committee is here. We had hoped that we could wait till after the town meeting, but due to the timeline of when things have to be posted, and so we can get a warrant out there with recommendations prior to it being posted, we have to move forward. And Dinah O'Brien is going to come up and speak for the building committee. As you know, the selectmen have scheduled a town meeting for June 3rd and a special election for June 18th. And this would be for the building project for the town hall and the community center.
So, but before we jump to that, this was at the last selectmen meeting, and I know a couple of them asked, can this be postponed? Was that ever actually answered?
Yeah, they held a meeting last Thursday night, and they voted 4-0 to move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, my name is Dinah O'Brien, I'm chairman of the Building Committee. And I'd like to give you a little bit of background as to how the process worked. I'll try to be brief because we've been here for a while tonight and I know you have a lot of work to do. Back in the dark ages, at the April 2017 annual town meeting, the money for a feasibility study was appropriated. That work did begin in June of that year and continued on. Bids were placed for an RFQ for a senior center and for a town hall. The bids were answered. We had 2 different architectural firms that did respond. Unfortunately, we didn't have any overlap in the architectural firms. Bids were awarded. We went through the process of looking for land, places to build. We also had to look at what was needed in buildings as we went forward. For the town hall side of the project, the architectural firm DVBM came in and met with town staff, looked at the needs of the town into the future, not only office space, but the ever-popular and much-needed storage space for municipal records, vaults, things that the town hall needs, and came up with a plan that is in the booklet that you did receive. You can see the floor plan for a town hall. Council on Aging was a little bit different because it's a single department within a single building. And so we went out to the community in the form of surveys to find out what people would be interested in having in a senior center. That was both an online and a paper survey for anybody who had a preference as to how they wanted to fill them out. Determined what the community was looking for in a senior center going forward. Then we had the major debate as to what to call it, because seniors do not like to go to a senior center. They prefer to go to a community center or a center for aging. If you were born in the baby boom generation like I was, you have a little bit of a problem with being a senior, even though we all are. So then we were able to develop a floor plan of what we would like to see within the facilities. We concluded our work. The two architects worked very well together. Both did cost estimates, project cost. The final number for the estimate so far, which is what you receive at this stage, which is a preliminary study, was $25,700 for both buildings. And that number does include original furnishings and equipment. So there, might be some play in there later on. Where we are now is we did present our findings to the Board of Selectmen. We're here to present them to you, to the Finance Committee. As we move forward through the town meeting process, hopefully it is approved at town meeting and at a town vote. At that time, we go back out to bid for one unified project. And that's when we come up with an absolute number an exact number as to how much it's going to cost to build these two buildings. But right now, we do have the estimate of $25,700,000 for both projects. That's where we are right now. And we're here to answer any of your questions.
So the 25 million, can that be guesstimated to each building? What's what and what?
Yes, we do have, Mark can address, he's our finance guy. No worries.
Town hall is 18 million, and the community center is about 7.5. That adds up.
Right, and in the town hall number, since they will both be on the same piece of property, that part of the project is bearing all the site work, all the preliminary sewers, all the groundwork, so that number is in that number.
So can I ask why you came up with two buildings and not just one? With like the community center on the ground floor and the town hall above, which I would think would save you money.
The buildings serve two different purposes.
Yeah, I understand that, but, you got community center on the bottom, town hall on the upper floor or the upper two floors, make it a 3-story building. You can have multiple uses out of one building.
That is something that could be looked into when we go out for final drawings and have one architectural firm looking at both buildings. However, I agree with Mark, they are two separate buildings. When we were first charged to do this, we were charged to do senior center, town hall. As the projects continued and the amount of land available to do them became obvious that they were a better fit on the same piece of land, and we stayed with the two separate buildings.
And I know people will just faint. Did we ever guesstimate what it would take if you gutted this place and redid it?
This building is beyond that.
Every building.
I can answer that question.
Go ahead, Mike.
We did, before we moved forward, so probably 4 or 5 years ago, we looked at bringing this building up to code, and it was $4 million just to bring this building up to code and not adding any space.
But you have a basement or a lower level that's being unused at the moment.
Right.
So we got space, we're just not using it.
Yeah, you do have space, but you have so many structural defects in this building that to spend $4 million just to bring it up to code and not increase, you wouldn't be increasing parking. And right now, this building, you don't have adequate parking. Obviously, you don't have an adequate meeting room. You don't have any conference rooms.
Right.
No private space at all.
But, you know, when you gut it, so then it's a clean sheet of paper and you can do whatever with it.
Right, but the square footage still isn't enough. And to answer your question about going up 3 stories, I mean, obviously, one of the most expensive parts, getting back to what you were talking about before, the tariffs on steel. There's not tariffs on the U.S. steel, but they know that the tariffs are 25%
Oh, yeah, I know.
on the Chinese steel, so theirs are probably 20. They probably increased their prices 20%. So the cost of steel is obviously a big factor, and the higher you go up, the more steel you're going to have to use. And I think a lot of people think by having one building, you save on HVAC and heating, and you don't, because of the way the systems are nowadays. They use mini splits. You don't have the ductwork that you'd have in the old days. Every office has their own regulator from the mini splits.
Peter?
So, we just heard from water, sewer, whoever it was, sewer?
Both.
That their price was, wow, 25% more than last year. So how good are we with the 25 million? How close are we, do we think?
We think we're very, very close.
Okay.
And there is a 4% escalator built into that cost to cover the 2 years.
Okay.
4% each year.
Each year, yeah. So we feel comfortable that we can do it for less. This is the worst-case scenario.
Rick?
I was just going to say, this is a turnkey project, correct?
Absolutely.
So this is including permits, down to the chairs and desks.
Absolutely.
Tile on the floor.
Put the key in the door, walk in, go to work.
Can you, and have you specified all down through the bill of material with the tile?
That's in the next part of the process.
There could be cost savings.
Yeah, oh, yes.
So,
As I said, this is the worst-case scenario, and hopefully, usually, in my past building experience, as you do go out to bid, and you look at the materials and with the economy of scale, you can lower the cost.
and is that 4% compounded, or just 4% every 2 years? So it's 2?
No.
Or
No, it's 4% each year for 2 years.
For 2 years?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's based on when the property will be available to us to begin construction.
2-year project?
Yes.
That's right.
And just
Think of the bond. Okay.
to answer Rick's question, the first thing we go out to bid for is an owner's project manager. And the owner's project manager will be working with us as we go out to bid for architects and as we go out to bid for contractors later. So it's important to have the owner's project manager on first, so that as we go out and hire architects and the architects come up with some ideas and the owner's project manager is like, no, we don't need that quality tile, we'll use this tile and save X amount. And they'll go through every line item.
But just a follow-up, so the building envelope will stay the same. The mechanics you haven't even really, I guess, you haven't really even specified tonnage, building.
No.
So there could be,
In the building envelopes,
They could change.
they could change
Right.
too. I mean, you could say, look, we don't need this many conference rooms, so cut these two out and see if it saves some square footage.
do you think you could, when do you think you could get some more definitive?
Once we get through the town meeting process and the vote, then we can start moving ahead with the owner's project manager and get definitive, materials, construction. All the hard costs will come after that. So this was the preliminary study and the good faith estimate as to what the projects could cost at the maximum.
It is a lot of money, considering, there's no school, it's not like a building authority where you can get a percentage of
Right.
support.
Right, libraries and schools have support, but unfortunately, town halls do not.
Mike?
And just confirmation more than anything else. The land is all safe and there's no contamination on that land. 'Cause I know that was an issue that's been, raised many times. But just, you can say, and you probably have to say at town meeting as well, that the land is safe and buildable.
Yes, as safe as the EPA can make it,
Okay.
Cleaned up now.
yes.
And I know there was a discussion between using the land right back here or that site. Now, was there the cost savings for that site, or that was never pursued?
There were some issues with proximity to abutters with that. We did look at that site. We looked at one farther down West Main Street. We looked at one across the street from Leonard Street. We looked at one down 140 by the VFW. So we've kind of bounced around looking for properties that could hold this, and ran up to, to zoning issues, that, out of courtesy to residents, you really don't want these buildings quite that close, or water, wetlands. And so we feel we found a pretty good piece of property. We realize it's not in the center of town, but as we all know,
And that
the good Lord's not making any more land in the center of town, so, what do you do?
And that would not be on sewer as either.
No, it would have its own septic system.
Okay. All right.
Just to follow up on Mike's questions, as Dinah said, the sites we looked at, the Summer Street site was too wet. That was Wheaton College land. And down on East Main Street, right by Dunkin' Donuts, in between Dunkin' Donuts and the salt shed, the engineers that the architects hired said the cost estimates to develop that site would be too high, and it wouldn't be cost-effective to develop that site. And here, to do the town hall and senior center, we needed the land next door, and he refused to sell that to us, so.
All right, thanks.
Lonnie?
Did he refuse to sell it, or was it an exorbitant amount that he wanted? Because I've heard different things.
He wasn't interested at the time.
He would not sell.
So,
And he'd throw out $1 million for the land, but he would not sell it.
so I haven't verified this myself. I have heard it through talk here before or after meetings. Did Foxborough just do a town hall at considerably less money?
They did a town hall 4 or 5 years ago.
They owned the land, and there was very minimal site
Site prep.
costs.
Well, we're getting the land for free, are we not?
Yes.
Yes, but we still do have to do site prep on the property.
They built in their parking lot of their town hall, so.
So what happens to this building?
Well, the fire department will take right to that, the wall, they're coming over to all the brick part will be part of the fire department. And then the gym part, we'd have to look at if we're gonna, it just would, there's no, we would only have to tear this down if we were gonna build behind it and we need it for parking. So, this could just stay here for storage.
Right, so there's still a cost to keeping this sitting here.
Minimal. It's gonna be, there's not gonna be lights and heat, all
So
the time.
So the fire department's gonna expand this way?
Just to the wall that goes down the hallway there.
And is there a cost to that expansion?
Minimal cost. We don't know what the actual total will be, but all the AC is on their side of the building, so everything will just, if they need more bedroom space, bunk space, things like that, they could just move over.
Okay. Amy?
I want to start by thanking you guys for the work that you've done. I know it's a thankless job and people ask you a million questions. You're like, we already thought of that. And I appreciate your willingness to repeat yourself over and over again and answer all those questions. I don't think anyone sitting at this table is questioning the need for these buildings. I can say that I have concerns in particular about operational budgets to support the ongoing function, particularly of the senior center. They're woefully understaffed as it is, and when their footprint expands to 5 times what it is currently, they will clearly need people sitting at the front desk. And if we're investing $7.4 million to build a building, I think it needs to be a town employee. Because I'm concerned that a volunteer may or may not have the full understanding of what's going on in the building at their fingertips. So I have concerns about how we, with budgets as tight as they currently are, can properly operate facilities of this magnitude.
Have we projected that, Mike? Moving from one to the other, what the additional cost and/or savings would be?
Well, costs for staff, as you know, we put in the budget this year for a clerical person for COA, so that they would have a staff person there. And as far as costs for utilities, we should be saving money on costs. Both buildings now are totally inefficient, and there should be some savings there. The only problem, increase we could see would be in maintenance, cleaning and things of that.
Cleaning, mowing, Keith, more work for
Keith could be
Keith to
doing
mow.
that, but plowing and mowing. But other than the maintenance, the estimate, like for the senior center, the new senior center, from our cleaning company to clean that, building that size would be $625 a month, and right now it's $216 a month.
What about the town hall, which is also growing exponentially?
Town hall, for the new town hall, they would estimate $1,600 a month, and currently it's $500 a month. So, cleaning for the town hall, about $1,100 a month more, and for the senior center, it would be about $400 more a month.
And those are the only additional costs that you're expanding the footprints of both, exponentially. There's not additional like water and heat and all that kind of stuff that.
I mean, it's gonna be the same amount of people using the buildings that use them now.
The argument for the community center is that they're jammed to the walls now, and people just drive up to go, I can't find a parking space, blah, blah, blah. I keep driving. Well, now with all this, you're gonna have more people.
Well,
At least that's the hope.
Yeah, I don't see that it's gonna increase the amount of water usage that much, that it would be something significant. And the same with the town hall, it's gonna serve the same function. You just won't be on top of each other.
If I could just put in, the last senior center that I built was for the town of Plymouth, and I did manage their budgets, and we did not have a significant increase in our water bill. There were the same amount of flushes going on and the same, it was maybe on their annual budget, they increased the water bill maybe $50. It wasn't huge, and we went from a facility that was 3,000 square feet to a 17,000 square foot facility. So it wasn't bad. And one of the things, if I could just interject, Mike, that we found through the senior survey is that people are looking for ways to volunteer. And the COA does run on volunteers a lot. They do a lot of revolving fund programming. So we're not looking at any significant staff increases other than the clerical that we're having. It can be done.
Mike, do you see that we'll actually save money on HVAC in the new building?
That's what we were just talking about. HVAC, the heat and air conditioning, today in here, there were so many space heaters going. I can just imagine how much we're gonna save on electricity in the new building. And the AC, it's the same thing. There's nothing efficient here because it's all open, so any heat or AC, it just runs all the time because it's all open space.
And the COA is a 1890s schoolhouse that was converted to a fire department, so you can imagine the amount of insulation in that building. It's not there.
The pictures don't depict it. Any thought of solar on the roofs?
Not on the roofs, but we're looking at, we wouldn't want to put it on the roofs, but we would look over the parking lot on Elm Street, canopy solar.
On the other side?
Yeah.
And is that expanding? I can't really tell from this picture. Is that parking lot expanding, or it's just what it is?
Just what
it is.
I appreciate what you guys have done as well, and I don't need convincing at all about the necessity for the project. This is the fourth time I've heard the presentation. I've heard the expanded presentation a few times. I was at that meeting on Thursday night, right? This is where the selectmen met with your committee, and I think the concerns that were raised by two of the selectmen, because you mentioned ultimately it was voted 4-0, Mr. Flaherty wasn't there, to put this to the town meeting, but the concerns were raised about kind of the public perception of the project at this moment. And Mr. Flaherty seemed to think that there was a lot of support, and I think there were selectmen trying to explain to him that they think that there's not a lot of support, and that was their concern, that this project may not have the support that it needs to be successful. And I just wanted to voice that concern as well here, because it hasn't been yet. That I share that concern, that I think we all kind of travel in different circles and talk to different people. And the people that I hear from and talk to, and I know that he wasn't in favor of social media when he spoke last week, but I do connect with a lot of people that way, and that seems to be like a prevailing opinion. And so I think that was their concern, was that they felt like it made sense to let the public decide ultimately, because you all felt very strongly about the research you had done in over a year and a half. But I do share those concerns, and I share the concern that there are lots of priorities that we have in town that, it's really hard to decide what we're going to address when. And a couple of weeks ago, or last week, we were discussing the problems with the operational budget and how insurmountable they feel year to year, and how they get worse year to year. And so I understand, wanting the taxpayer, every taxpayer, any taxpayer wanting to have their say, but I just wanted to say that I feel like at different meetings, people have mentioned having a bigger plan, like a long-term plan for the town that incorporates these types of buildings, dealing with the operational budget, the town common revitalization, the wanting to have complete streets, wanting to have a town center, as we've talked about. And I'm not sure that there'll be support for this, given there's so many people with so many different pockets of concern, if that makes sense. So,
It does make sense. Again, when I was working for the town of Plymouth, outside of the municipal and school building projects that we did, we also had a community visioning committee that was a third school, a third municipal, and a third citizens. And we worked for 3 years to set a vision for the town of Plymouth with its, oh, my word, we had guiding principles, we had how to have a meeting civilly, we had where you want to see your community in 5, 10, and 15 years, what kind of services you wanted. So I think that is a good thing to do and something, in my personal opinion, the town of Norton needs to do. However, it is outside of the scope of what this committee was charged to do.
I understand that. I feel like it's part of a bigger picture, and I just,
I think what Bonnie has said, and I know I expressed it at a selectman meeting a couple weeks ago, that I don't think enough information has gotten out for the townspeople to make an educated decision. I think they're going to see the price tag and they're going to go, not this year.
Well, I know the building committee is holding 2 other public, basically public hearings. However, again, it is not my committee's charge, and the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Directors for the Council on Aging are the people who should be out banging the drum slowly to get this project heard from. I'm not trying to pass the buck, but, I think it's good.
I don't think anybody here would disagree the need for the buildings.
Right. May 26th is the next meeting, by the way.
right, it's in here.
Sunday, May 21st, Tuesday.
I just,
Rick?
I was just gonna follow up. I haven't heard it 4 times, but I think 2 or 3 anyways, but it's exactly what everyone is echoing, but how I'm hearing it, maybe a little differently. This isn't just a cut and paste type of thing. We're gonna go a quarter of a mile down the road. I think the idea of this project is to expand its capabilities for the town's services. We're going to actually, I think, that community center, I don't know how many hundreds of people it's supposed to hold, but aren't you supposed to be able to do maybe an emergency shelter type of?
Not necessarily a shelter, because there is a shelter, but we could do heating and cooling.
Right.
Definitely.
And there are other functions you could use, and hopefully, and I do worry, I think the price is a lot to consider, but I think it would streamline a lot of government services, and I think it would be much user-friendly, over time. But again, if it was a lot less, I think it would be a lot more appealing. I just think it came upon, not quickly, because it is 2 years. It's been 2 years, and people don't realize that 2 years it's here now. So I think your efforts and your work is very appreciative, as the others have said. It's put a pin on the map, and I think it's really, it's well, if not now, when? It's just that, it's a lot. It's just my opinion.
Mr. Chairman.
Mike?
That's always been the argument and always will be the argument, but I just want to emphasize the fact that Norton goes cheap on everything, and you get what you pay for. And, I remember when we had plans for the police station, it was gonna be right down at Library Square, be the centerpiece of the town, columns, focal point, picture postcard, the whole bit. No, this is Norton. This is only Norton. I've been hearing for years, this is only Norton. What do we want something like that for? So we ended up with the police station where it is, built on ledge, leaky basement, there was problems with everything. Middle school, we had leaky, the turret where the glass comes in, they put carpeting down in the cafeteria that had to be replaced. I'm not saying, a blank check, but let's try to do it right if we possibly can, because when you cut corners up front, you end up paying for it in the long run. So I'm by no means a spendthrift, but we cut, and you get what you pay for. And I'm not saying extravagance, but just quality, maybe, within reason. So it's happened time after time.
Yep. Aaron?
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think that these plans look lovely. I think that these are upgrades that the town of Norton could use and could benefit from. But I question our priorities when we are coming out of a budget season where we've been unable to fund a single department at their requested budget that we all, for the most part, assessed as fairly reasonable, and that there are a lot of things in this town we cannot afford to do. And that the one that we think we should do is give ourselves better offices or give ourselves a better, on the town hall side. Certainly, the community center, the senior center deserves our attention. But to lump the two together and swallow this massive price tag, I think is going to cripple our ability to try to address all these other issues we have in town going forward over the next decade, longer, for as long as we're paying this off. If we have to scrape and claw as hard as we have to just to get Keith 2 new guys to mow the cemeteries, and if, we have to, that comes at the expense of cuts to the general education budget. Are we really in a financial situation where we can be taking on this kind of debt, building a big, nice new thing for ourselves? I feel like, we should get our house in order before we tackle something. So I don't want to call it an extravagance. I don't think that this is, I think to Michael's point, this project is not over the top extravagant. This, I think, is lovely. I think it's at some point reasonable, and would fit well within the town of Norton. But I think that we have to get our fundamentals straightened out before we can start to look to make singular large improvements like this.
Steve?
And I agree with what Mike said as well, but we just heard too that potentially for sewer hookups and that's going to be $300 to $400 per household just to do that. Another $300 or $400 for the financing of this project. Now you're at $1,000, and anything else that comes down the road.
Plus the normal increase.
It's all becoming a more burdensome on the taxpayers, and I think we need to recognize that and figure out a way to level this out. I know we have some things that we can do, but is it going to absorb all these costs and all these functions? I'm not there.
Peter?
Yes, I agree that we need a new town hall in the senior center because this is falling apart. And I've been many times and this is falling apart and been in the senior center a couple of times and it is time that we need a new senior center and need a new town hall. And I get out the information on Facebook so people can see and they can use it to vote for a new town hall and senior center. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter.
That's our committee's report.
Thank you.
So, there you go.
Thank you very much.
And if not now, when? There's never a good time to have a baby, but we do.
Not a $25 million baby.
You haven't met my kids, have you?
Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. Thank you. We don't have to vote on that.
Are we voting on this?
Mike, I would recommend, you know, at the special town meeting that we have some more total costs, not for the actual construction, but the ongoing upkeep of it and that kind of stuff. And what's gonna happen to this thing and there's gotta be a cost of just keeping it, because you have to insure it. So,
Do we need to vote tonight because of the timing?
do we need to vote on this today,
When
or?
is the latest?
You either can vote tonight, or if you wanted to have another meeting, you have to, we post the warrant Friday, the 17th, and,
Friday?
and then post the special town meeting warrant with recommendations May 24th. So,
I say we vote while the discussion is fresh.
I'll second that.
Missing Tom, missing Paul.
I guess I'll just say that a lot of hard work was put in, a lot of thoughtful considerations the last 2 years. But not, I think we all pretty much agree that both buildings are, you know, there has to be some movement in new construction. But I just, more importantly, I think just the people's voices should be heard. Just let it, you know, I say move it forward. I'm all for a,
Move the vote forward, or move the, what are we moving forward?
I'd move the article, I mean, not the article, move the forward. I'm for going forward and endorsing it. I guess that's probably the right word to say.
I guess I
Not-
myself would rather have the full committee here, if that's possible.
Can put it
That's
on
me,
an agenda
but-
for Wednesday, is that too early?
I won't be there Wednesday.
Can we guarantee we're going to have full attendance at any future?
Mr. Chairman, I'd say that, I mean, I think this is gonna go before the town as a whole anyways. And I'm for it just to put it in front of the town, whether I personally think it's good or bad. I mean, I think it's a good idea, but I can see the concerns people have with spending this kind of money. But I think as a committee, I don't know, we're the finance committee. Do we think it's fiscally responsible? Some people don't think it is. I think the town should have a shot at it to vote. The people think they should, then people that vote want it, then they'll have it. The people that vote don't want it, they won't. So I say, people get out and vote.
That's what I'm saying with Peter.
I agree, people need a vote.
Well, first it's the town meeting.
Town meeting, you're gonna vote for it to put it on a ballot.
Well, the
And then-
ballot's a couple days
Well, if
later.
they,
2 weeks.
2 weeks later.
the town meeting is June 3rd,
Yep.
and the ballot is June 18th.
but if the town meeting doesn't approve to put it on a ballot, there's gonna be nothing on a ballot.
Say that again?
If the town meeting doesn't put it on a ballot, there'll be nothing on a ballot.
No,
No?
there will be the ballot.
There will be a ballot.
there isn't time now to cancel the election. You have to have the election.
Right.
So no matter how town meeting votes, there will be the election.
And that election's going to take place during summer break,
June 18th.
during summer break.
Yes.
Last day of school is June 14th.
That,
Families hit the road.
that is so the school would be closed when we have the election,
And
so that, safety-wise.
And what's the average cost for an election?
$9,800.
Yeah, we voted for that.
Between, 9,600, I think you approved.
98.
We have elections all the time with kids in school. That's not the issue.
No,
My issue is-
my issue is if the town votes no, you still have to,
Still have an election for nothing.
you have an election.
You have an election.
You're throwing out $10,000.
If town meeting was to vote no, and the election, you have the election and they vote yes, you would go back to a town meeting.
Right, in the summer when no one's, like, when people are.
What's the time?
That
And
seems.
Shady.
it could be in September or October if we wanted.
So there's
Or
no
July,
like time
No.
limit that, hey, you voted June 18th, you must have within 30 days, 60 days?
No. That would only be if it was something that affected the budget and you had to have a town meeting to get a budget approved before July 1.
But you could do it quickly.
Well, you
So
still have to give notice and everything, but yeah, it could still be in the summer.
The selectmen would determine that. It would be the selectmen that would determine that?
Determine what?
When the special town meeting to follow up, if
The
there were a
special
yes vote, they would determine that date.
Yes.
Peter?
So, what's the correlation between having the town meeting and the vote? Nothing? I mean, like, we can have this town meeting and everybody could just say, no, we don't want it, but then all of a sudden it gets voted and gets in. But then we have another town meeting because the people voted yes?
So it's 2 out
And
of
if that
3?
town meeting says no, after people voted yes,
So-
what happens?
It's my understanding that if the ballot vote passes, but it fails at the town meeting before the ballot vote, you have 12 months from the ballot vote to get a yes vote at town meeting. So you can just keep having them every 2 weeks if you want,
So-
over and over.
So the ballot vote would actually approve a debt exclusion. And the town meeting would be only to authorize the borrowing.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes more sense.
But you have a year to do.
And
So
if-
it doesn't matter if the next one is a no and the next one is a no, as long as you keep having them?
That would be up to
Right.
the selectmen to decide.
And we're going to have that vote during summer break after many families have taken off on their vacations.
I can't say whether families take off or not.
Well, summer break, they do.
I'm leaving the minute my kids get off the school bus.
Kids
Just
in an elevator.
saying, for the 3rd year in a row.
Yeah.
Get
This
an
is just
absentee
another
ballot.
example and another part of this that's just all happening very fast.
Get an absentee ballot. You want to vote, just get an
Whirlwind.
absentee ballot. It's easy to do. You can do it if you're home.
Are we that?
If you're home, you can still get.
But it's happening, whatever.
It's been,
I guess you can do it, yeah.
You can.
I always hear about the speed, but it's been over 2 years that we've been
Right.
talking about this.
But the amount just came out in end of February,
Yeah.
so. And then the meetings held March, April, and now.
Right. Because this is the second one I've been to.
Will there be a second vote after we get the actual number?
No.
Not
Just
if it's higher than
as
25.7 million.
As I've mentioned before,
Yeah, you would need that, okay.
as I've mentioned before, it's just like the window project. We authorize 8 million, so then that gets reduced by whatever. The high school project, we authorized 34 million. It
We
got
only need to
reduced.
do it if we actually
Exceed the number.
exceeded the,
Right, exactly. So any,
or accounted for in that.
any grants or contributions or aid from the state would come off.
the what will it cost me page, what are we guesstimating we'll be able to bond this at? What rate?
On that page, I believe it was 4%. Let me check. So bond council based that on 4.21%.
And how long is that good for? That's a guesstimate, so by the time we get there in 2 years, it could be anywhere. Could be 6, could be 2.
Right.
Rick?
I was just gonna say, you know, I think I read $700 a square foot estimate.
No, the cost of the building?
Yeah.
Do you have
It was
that, Mark?
700 square foot.
It's about 560.
It said 700 here, right there. But
It's in the questions. That figure that came out about, that was the question. Is this costing 700 a square foot? No, because that is including all the soft costs.
how's the, I know, in a project like this, the labor is a big component, and prevailing wage is an underlying component. Are we in the Boston district, or are we in the southeastern Mass district?
Boston.
Oh.
That happened.
Huh?
Peter? Yeah, even though for, like,
And the what will it cost me? Could you take those numbers and put a total at the end for people to say? I
at
mean,
the end of 20 years?
Yeah, I mean, I could
20-year
approximately take the
total.
year 1 times 20, but it comes down to 205. Could you put it, it sounds like a scary number to put on there, but people will want to know that's what it's ultimately going to cost me.
I think
Over
it's year
20
10
years.
times 20, right? If you just did year 10 times 20?
That's what it is, then that's what it is, but
Yeah, but it keeps,
kind of,
I mean, it decreases, right? But-
Right.
is this
so-
only a 10-year bond?
no, it's 20.
No, 20.
20. Just,
Yeah.
just a suggestion when we go to, when you show this to people
Mhm.
at town meeting, I'm sure you're going to show it. I'd like to see a total.
So, tell me again what you're looking to see.
So year 1, 10, and 20 was from some amortization schedule, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
And
well, just
total.
give me a total. Year 1 through 20, add those columns up.
Like a column that says total,
Yeah,
goes down for each value, home value.
I don't need to see all 20 years items. I like the 1, 10, 20, but after 20 years, how much have I paid?
If you wanted to
Think you'll-
be
Well, that's what I
really
meant.
fancy, it'd be cool to have like an Excel calculator where you could plug in your assessed value and it would tell you all of those things for your exact house.
They have those, I mean, I have one, but like, I'm thinking people at the town meeting.
But it would be
They'd
year
see
10
it.
times 20, right?
Yeah,
Ish.
that's the
rough
average, yeah.
estimate.
Goes
The
down,
average,
yeah.
but
Yeah. So it's a guesstimate.
I think we had the total for people. See the total. That's all.
Did I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. Mr. Chairman,
Peter?
I make a motion that we recommend, what am I recommending? It's not an
Article
article,
one.
right? It's
Article
Article 1
It's
of
Article
the,
1.
Special?
of the
June
special,
3rd.
June 3rd special town meeting
For
to recommend
25,700,000.
$25,716,000.
Second.
Debt exclusion of that. Would that be raised and appropriate?
Is that what the article is,
How
or
does
is the
that- how does
article
that- How's
to-
that included? Raised and appropriate? Debt exclusion?
Raise and appropriate through it with a debt
Through debt
exclusion.
exclusion. That's the words I just used.
Yeah, Pat got it, don't worry.
Got that, Pat?
Translated.
It wouldn't be in that one, because it's a separate meeting.
That's not in here.
It's a special
It's
town
the
meeting?
special town meeting of
Special-
June 3rd, 2019.
Right.
Yeah, we had the article at a previous meeting.
I may have it here somewhere. Right here, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds and/or borrow the sum of 25,000,007. So this is, it is to borrow the money. That's the article.
Raise and appropriate, it's got all of them in there.
Right.
So this is to raise and appropriate through debt exclusion.
Okay, so we're not voting on whether or not the people should be able to vote. We're voting on whether or not we're recommending that this, we think it's a good idea to be,
Borrowing
Yes.
that.
to be,
Just like
to be
anything,
borrowing this
yeah.
money.
Yep.
Right, so we can
As a com-
be in the, we can be on the article for June 3rd, being opposed,
Or for.
in favor.
This won't affect anybody's ability to vote.
We can't be a tie.
Right.
We're
Unless someone-
9, right?
Nine.
So
Unless
I
someone-
think that's a minimal concern.
And I put forward that we
Seconded it.
approve it, that we recommend it.
Okay.
So if it becomes negative, then it'd be a non-recommendation. Right? No, someone would have to recommend we don't recommend it, and then we'd have to vote on that. I vote
We
that we
would?
recommend.
Recommend.
I vote that we recommend 25.716 million for Article 1 of the special town meeting of June 3rd to raise and appropriate through debt exclusion. That sum.
And you second
I second it.
it. And
To borrow? Whatever. We need the money.
We'll find it in the couch cushions.
Have the lawyers figure out what I'm supposed to say.
In the tree in your backyard.
Any further discussion on this? All those in favor? All those opposed?
What's the vote? I couldn't count fast.
Me neither.
The opposed,
1?
1,
5-4.
5-4.
Does that mean we not recommend?
That's what it means.
That's what it means, it's fine. But that's what we mean.
It is.
Okay.
And I myself will just say, it's not that I'm against this. I think we need a more comprehensive plan of where we're spending money, for what and when. And then I'd be all for it. But I don't think we have that. All right, then.
Agreed.
Chairman, we had to take action on Article 19 tonight, the digital sign. I don't think we voted on that.
I think we have to.
We have to wait for the
We have to
planning
wait.
board.
Oh, okay.
And that's not happening until the next week.
And I did talk to the superintendent on the supplemental appropriations, budget appropriations for the special. He should have a figure tomorrow on that. He said he was working on his number, and I'll get that to you so you have it before Wednesday night if you have to, if we're going to adjust that number down.
Okay,
All right?
okay. So we're meeting 6 o'clock Wednesday, to do the planning board. And the school is more informational. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Do we have minutes to entertain ourselves? How about one set?
Tom's not here. He would
I
be
know, Tom
so
would have,
beside
I was
himself.
gonna take his place. I was all ready for my, seeing the lateness of the hour.
I know, you're in the
I'm in the Tom seat. I'm not as sleepy-headed as Tom.
Yes, I didn't realize it was so late until a couple minutes ago.
Oh, we didn't even get to this conversation until we were 90 minutes into the meeting.
It was more than that, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ben.
I will, I promise.
Thank you for spelling my name correct.
So he's looking on this Article 3. Potentially.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Start with the more recent, we'll work back.
I'm gonna have to go through this.
I thought he said it would be less.
He did.
Can you get 2 copies for Wednesday?
2 additional or just?
Well, 1 additional, because I won't be there
Right.
until Lord knows when. And I think there's stuff on what to say and all that kind of stuff.
So that was last week?
Or if I can just.
2 copies of I move, right.
Yeah.
This is me.
Amy?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to make you aware, I was at the school committee meeting on Thursday last week.
Yep.
And I think that this joint meeting on the 30th may be being relocated to the high school. I just wanted to make everyone aware. I will reach out to Dr. Baeta and get confirmation of our location and let everyone know.
Great, thanks.
Because the middle school is
The
too
high school?
small?
Because they're having an event at the high school prior to this meeting, and rather than trying to get everyone rearranged and over to the middle school, I think they might just be holding it there.
Ah, okay,
What's the event?
I don't know.
okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think Paul was absent last week. Unless I'm wrong.
That was 2 weeks ago. He was here last week.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, he was here last
Such
week.
what I know.
Yeah, last meeting we had a full house.
Okay.
Well, someone, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I only count 10. There's 11.
Mr. Rotundi's
Oh,
on the
Rotundi's
top
on the
line.
top.
I counted a million times. Mr.
You really have to.
Yes.
On page 2, halfway down, it says, has town council weighed in on these changes? Because we don't have a town council with an IL, we have a town council as in a lawyer with an EL.
Oh, I spelled
I
it
would like us to please make that amendment.
COUN.
SEO.
Thank you.
SEL.
And see, spell check wouldn't highlight that, would it?
Exactly.
Oh, and there's another,
I probably did it more than once.
under Article 18's discussion
Yep.
about off-street parking and loading, there's another.
Thank you. I did it again.
I got there.
I got it.
Oh,
Page 3.
yeah. Page 3. Town council stated they could no longer grant.
Mhm.
Is that accurate? The last page, is that accurate? in the vote? I don't think that's accurate.
It
This
should,
one here, and as well as the vote. It wasn't clear, it wasn't stating the need for an override, it was stating the need for change in level services.
Yeah, when I read the draft, I made that comment back to Pat that I wasn't sure that's what was stated, but I can't be 100% sure one way or the other, so I'm gonna leave it up to
So you're
people
looking
to
at number
debate.
4, open items?
yeah.
There was a lot of discussion, so
Yeah, I
I could have
agree.
gotten it wrong.
I agree. So it should be, in the first paragraph, it should be very clear that an override will be needed soon, I think is appropriate there, because that's what was stated. But what we agreed to was not to, we did not agree to state clearly
Correct.
that the need for an override was there. We agreed to do the math on the difference between the budget requests
Yep.
and the actual budget, and just kind of put the shortage out there in plain math for people to see.
Right.
Correct.
We did not agree that the
Okay.
Right. And I would, but
wording in the
I would probably go further and say on the floor in the last sentence of the first paragraph,
Should be stricken.
I think we should strike that. I don't think we were very clear that an override would be needed soon. We had
Right,
conversation.
strike the last sentence, yeah.
That's my recommendation.
It was part of the
Because I
discussion.
have in Mr.
It was, but it
Helmer's
wasn't.
motion, what you were saying, Aaron, about writing with the final total and percentage amounts to show the school shortfall and the entire town shortfall.
Correct.
So I put that, that's where Mr. Helmer
Right.
had the,
Clarifying the shortfalls.
had the motion. I'll take that other,
The discussion surrounded the fact that it should be very clear that an override would be needed soon.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't have no
It just wasn't
problems.
agreed on. So I think it belongs in the first paragraph, not the second.
And I would say
Is it in the second
neither.
one? Oh,
No,
yes, it is.
It was discussed, and then it was that discussion that we the people, this committee disagreed whether we actually need an override or not, but it was discussed, it was mentioned.
Correct.
So I guess you put,
Something
di-
about-
discussions of an override, the merits of an override, or the merits of an override were discussed.
And then take it out of Mr. Helmer's? Because what ended up being the motion was, and I trust that, about the shortfall in the entire town and the school side, and then it was kind of like, and what we've discussed. So it was kind of,
I don't believe Paul's intent was that that the letter, which the letter does
is
not.
what we were discussing.
That our annual report, which it does not, states as an assertion that the town is in need of an override.
Okay.
Right, that
So I'll
was
take
not-
that last out of the motion and just leave the merits of an override was discussed, but not decided.
In the first
In the
paragraph.
first paragraph.
Correct.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I suggest we review these minutes with Mr. Helmer's presence, and he could tell us what he really meant. No?
No, because I,
No? It's fine,
because I was going to say, I discussed it
Yeah.
or emailed it with him and with Rick and Steve, that Paul only gave us the authority to play with the numbers.
Right, okay, yeah.
And that's what we did in that fourth paragraph or whatever. What I subsequently did was just bring up the disconnect between what we were saying in paragraph 2 and what we were saying in paragraph 4, which is why I sent out an email
Yep.
to clarify that sentence.
Okay.
And made the change accordingly.
Okay, so there's quite a few changes to this. I'll just make them and bring them back to you
So,
if it's approved.
well, no, I think we've discussed what to do on this. for the purposes of this meeting, I want to put into the record that I did note a disconnect between paragraph 2 and paragraph 4 of our report. And I emailed the group as to if they agreed with my recommended change or not. And hopefully I get all the right people here. Paul said yes, Tom said yes, Aaron said yes, Amy said yes, Walter said yes, I believe Steve said yes, Rick said yes, and by default, since I made the changes, I said yes.
What about Mike? Did he say anything?
No, Mike didn't respond back to me.
respond to
Peter.
Peter didn't respond
Just
back,
wanted- And,
I didn't.
and Bonnie didn't either.
okay, because my count was off.
So just so that's in the record that, you know, we voted for it one way last meeting, this meeting, and then subsequent changes happened.
So I'll put that in these minutes.
Correct. For tonight.
Now what do I do with those?
We still have to amend, I thought we discussed what's being amended on the last portion, plus the spelling of council. In 3 places.
Do you want to accept them as amended then, or do you want to get, Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes of our May 6th, 2019 meeting as amended.
Second. Aaron, second.
Motion and a second to approve the May 6, 2019 Finance Committee meeting minutes as amended. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous.
Let's go to bed. Break, let's go to replace.
So without a Tom here, I guess we have to stay.
Mr. Chairman,
Seeing the lateness of the hour.
recommendation, we adjourn?
Motion and a second to adjourn. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Unanimous.